Hello, and welcome to this Brand Square webinar featuring Digimarc Chief Marketing Officer Larry Logan as he presents Winning Customer Loyalty Through Digitally Empowered Packaging. If you registered and attended last week's webinar, we're glad you were able to join us this week, and we are very sorry for any inconvenience. My name is Stephanie Krieger, and I'll be your moderator for today. Before we get started, I would like to cover some housekeeping items. This webinar is interactive, so I encourage you to submit questions at any time during the presentation using the questions panel in your GoToWebinar control panel. We will be monitoring the questions and will address them at the end of the presentation. We will also record this webinar for future viewing, and we'll send out a link to the recording in the coming weeks. Please join in the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag BrandSquare. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Larry.
Great. Well, thank you, Stephanie, and hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to join you today and share some thoughts on how the connected package can increase brand loyalty and also can increase consumer engagement. So next slide. There we are. So for our agenda today, we'll look at some of today's challenging times for brands in the marketplace. Then we'll look at the increasing demand for content by consumers and what's driving this, and what are some of the challenges and constraints to providing that content. We'll move on to some of the package triggers used to create these digital experiences, then our thoughts at Digimarc on how we approach these challenges, and we'll review some of the categories of content, and close with a summary on the package as the brand's narrator, and then on to your questions. There'll be a lot of facts and detail. We'll be moving along rapidly, and so with your patience, I'll be using a script to make sure we move along. A little bit about Digimarc so you understand our perspective. We've been around for about 20 years. We have a history of innovation, NASDAQ-listed company, and our largest customer is a consortium of world banks where we provide a means of deterring the counterfeiting of money. Our expertise is in signal processing. Digimarc is a pioneer and world leader in the automatic identification of objects, print, packaging, and audio-video. We do this by subtly enhancing the art or media to create a visually imperceptible or an audible code replicated throughout the media. Although this cannot be discerned by humans, the code can be detected by computing devices such as your smartphone or a front-of-store scanner. Our applications have become standards in a number of industries. You experience Digimarc every day in many ways, we suspect, because all the television and radio in America is under license from Digimarc for our technology, along with all Blu-ray devices and digital cinema projectors. We're relatively new to retail, but we have launched a collaboration with GS1 to deliver digitally enhanced packaging as a peer carrier to the UPC code. And a growing number of retailers and brands are embracing our Digimarc barcode for their packaging and omni-channel campaigns. So why should you be considering the connected package to increase brand loyalty? As many of you are all too aware, major brands are reporting slow to no growth. Over a 12-month period, 62 of the top 100 brands reported a decline of 9.4%. 90 of the top 100 brands lost market share within their category overall. With slow growth, there's consolidation, as we've seen with the downsizing and staff at various CPGs. Certainty in the marketplace, and also with increased acquisitions, puts a focus on cost cutting as opposed to growth. And there's billions wasted in media advertising, to which we would add all the more reason for packaging to win at the shelf and provide new opportunities for growth. In the meantime, we're in a revolution in terms of smartphone usage. It was just a few short years ago that it took 3 clicks on my phone to get a letter simply to send a text. Now, particularly for millennials, the smartphone is the remote control for their lives, bringing them any information they desire. What's that music? SHAZAM it. Take me to the airport? Uber. And now let's look at how consumers are using their smartphones at retail. 97% of the Gen Y generation, 18 to 29, use a smartphone in the store. It's always available, always accessible. And with phones handy, it's not surprising that 73% of them are willing to scan products to help them with their shopping choices. Now, in the past, that would have meant scanning for pricing. But what we're seeing is really a year-over-year shift of 30% towards seeking out inspiration and ideas versus purely pricing. And it's important to provide this incremental information that consumers seek because this audience spends 25% more. In a survey we conducted with a Harris poll of 2,000 shoppers over the age of 18, 85% say reading a product packaging helped them make a purchase decision. And that's sort of intuitive. That would be obvious. That is the purpose of a package, is in order to communicate. Yet at the same time, we're seeing 78% wanted more information. One research paper notes that the average consumer seeks upwards of 15 separate items related to health and wellness on a package. And 75% are more likely to research and purchase items online if they do not get that information. So there's a risk of interrupting the sale and having consumers go online. They might choose a different retailer, but they might also choose a different product. And that number of 75% is really 87% when we talk about millennials. And millennials, well, there's just as many of those now as there are baby boomers, and they do lead the trends in food and retail. So we've established that today's mobilizer wants more information. So what are driving some of the challenges with delivering that content that these shoppers are seeking? Well, quite simply, packaging real estate is becoming exhausted, as this example with an over-the-counter product shows. Much of the information is reserved for regulatory or legal disclaimers, and not what consumers necessarily desire. 51% of consumers want the new evolving drivers, far beyond simply, it tastes great. Provenance, where and how my food was grown. How will this affect my health and safety? What is the social impact of this product? What is the brand sharing about safety and transparency? What about sustainability and corporate responsibility? 54% of millennials refuse to buy from companies with poor labor practices. So tell your positive stories. These trends span all ages, incomes, geography and genders, and product categories. So some of the challenges go to form factor. In many categories, consumers are seeking small packages for convenience and being on the go. And as noted here by Packaging Strategies magazine, packagers must still create a label that includes all necessary information, but on a much smaller space. And with European discount chains entering the US and those who are here enlarging their operations, domestic growers will be under increasing pressure to match them with operational efficiency. This is packaging from one of those chains, 6 barcodes, one for each side. With more barcodes, packaging moves faster at checkout, delivering more items per minute. This is a huge benefit to the retailer where items per minute scanned is a key metric. But obviously the UPC symbology is huge at eating into the real estate. If you're a brand manager or a designer, you should be worried as this trend continues and what compromises it will mean to your designs. A digital link from the package to richer content can satisfy this consumer quest for more information, while also mitigating the challenges with form factors and compromises to existing designs. So what are some of these on-pack triggers? The most common two approaches are UPC codes and QR codes. When scanning a UPC code with a shopper app, consumers presume this information comes from the brand, but the information just as likely could be crowdsourced and out of date or totally wrong. It's not necessarily authenticated by the brand. QR codes are functional, although to millennials they have a mixed response. And that's because when seen on airport posters and everywhere else, they associate a QR code with being sold something. But the biggest issue for brands, again, is the precious real estate. And most designers loathe incorporating any additional visual symbologies into their sign. There's also image recognition, which really needs more explanation on pros and cons, which you can discuss during the Q&A, which image rec can be useful for a low-risk engagement, such as entertainment. There is higher risk for e-commerce, and when the brand absolutely positively requires that the right answer appears on the consumer's phone every time. Before going with image rec, be sure to have in place extensive environmental testing, which is critical to ensuring a maximum or a minimum accuracy rate. And of course, there's RFID, which can provide linkages but additional marginal unit cost. Adoption is more common for higher priced goods to absorb the chip cost and for the increased cost from a converter. And it's a practical solution, though, for soft goods and where line of sight required for visual triggers may not be available. In any event, the codes you see here are artifacts from a time 40 years ago when machine devices required visual codes. With today's smartphones and scanners, that's no longer the case. And based on our 20 years of signal processing, we took a different approach. We developed the Digimarc barcode and a collaboration with GS1 US, the standards organization. It's also available in their portal as the DWCODE. I'll spend a few minutes to describe it as relatively new and an industry movement. We take the same information in the UPC code and replicate it hundreds of times over the surface of a package by making minute changes in the pixels. In essence, the graphics of the package becomes the signal. The image on the left is merely for illustration purposes. The codes don't look like that, and there's actually even a greater density of codes. But the code has no discernible features such as the zebra stripes. When the artwork package is enhanced, the designer will notice subtle differences because the designer is so familiar with their package. However, to the consumer, the effect is imperceptible, as shown on the right. What this means for the retailer is that packaging no longer has to be rotated to try and align the UPC code to the scanner. The package now scans at any angle, delivering faster checkout and easier self-checkout for consumers. And the code's more efficient and reliable against damaged or hard-to-scan UPC codes. When consumers point their phones at the same package, they can access brand-authenticated content. It's basically whatever the brand wants to deliver. That might be of benefit to consumers, such as health programs, how-to videos, smart label content, and coupons or promotions. So you really sort of have a question. Do you want 6 codes or 200 imperceptible codes? From our earlier example, here's where retailers can get more reliability and efficiency without compromising the trade dress. The QR code carries a fixed web page URL. Instead, the DW code is more dynamic and flexible, as the routing and consumer experience can be updated at any given time in 1 minute. There's no programming required. So in this example with Fun Flakes, in essence, a different edutainment, education, entertainment experience can be delivered and changed every day or every week or every month. And on a digital press, each package can have its own unique identity. The applications are many, such as product variant information, versioning, geographic or A/B testing, gray market goods, and tying a specific package to a specific consumer. But zooming out to about 50,000 feet, once the DW code is in a package, there are other benefits across the CPG enterprise, such as ensuring parts matching during manufacturing, and even direct store delivery where packages can be easily scanned for inventory without having to handle in order to read the code. So let's move on and look at some of the types of information that consumers are seeking, that brands can deliver to create greater engagement, provide them more value, and achieve more loyalty and repeat sales. Product recommendations. Is this the right SKU for you, or here's what goes best with that dish? Use guidance. Please help me assemble that Swedish furniture. Or a video of how to better carve the turkey for young new cooks. Brand story. What's your heritage? Edutainment, I mentioned earlier. Education, entertainment. It's a great combination that parents appreciate. Social networks. Your marketing department currently doesn't know who purchased that package, but here's a chance to bring those consumers together with that richer experience. An example would be enrolling in a patient support group where they could share their stories. Or reordering, turning the package into a buy button. Subscriptions for repeat purchases. And product transparency initiatives, smart label, nutrition facts label, GMO labeling, which we'll look at shortly. So here's some examples. AllerPet's a new client for us. Their products remove allergens for pet owners. Certainly the packaging can link to value-added information, such as pet training videos, or a link to owner communities for various breeds. It's not a medication per se, but one of the key challenges with vets or any doctor is patient compliance with prescriptions. So the package can link to a scheduling program between doctor and patient to monitor use and reordering. Here's another example. This is Cornetto, Unilever brand, a project with SHAZAM, which was really terrific, where they allowed football or soccer players in the EU to basically take selfies of themselves and enter into a game. Belgian beer DAGSCHOTEL injected some fun into their bottles with their launch with digitally printed bottles. When two bottles are brought together, the app brings to life a dialogue back and forth between two well-known characters on TV. In essence, you've got talking bottles and they're synchronized. It's quite humorous and very engaging. In essence, what we're highlighting are opportunities for the brand to deliver meaningful information that will inform, entertain, or delight its customers. Today, we see primarily entertainment-oriented content, and there'll always be a role for that. But we believe there will be a significant shift to content and value that is authentic to the brand and is oriented to what the consumer needs to improve their lives or have a more deeper relationship with the brand. So let's move on to another form of content, and that's the various product transparency initiatives, such as Smart Label, nutrition facts, and again, GMO legislation. I'll save Smart Label for the moment and comment first on the nutrition facts label. None of the triggers we've discussed really apply to the food nutrition facts. It's basically a change in sizing of nutrients or additives or ingredients. However, the point is that your packaging is being updated over a 2-year period up until July 2018. As one brand manager expressed it well to us, as long as I've got the patient on the operating table, it's a good time to add a digital trigger. As for GMO label requirements, the making of the sausage will occur for some time. Then brands will have a time period in which to implement. We will be participating in the process, and we and others will be working to guide the decision makers toward realizing the benefits of newer technologies that consumers are already readily using versus dated approaches that might be limited with respect to the brand's opportunities for full engagement. So with respect to Smart Label, what I'm showing here is conceptual model. In terms of the current requirement is a lockup of a QR code. That's the trigger to deliver the Smart Label information. But in essence, what we can do is remove that QR code and simply say scan here for more information. And that linkage will go directly to the Smart Label page without interruptions or diversions, which often happens with QR codes or possibly with other triggers. Now, this is a capability that brands can utilize right away, but it doesn't interfere or change the broader capabilities with the DWCODE, and that's the ability to scan the rest of the package and receive some of these examples that you see here in terms of product content, buy now, recommendations, trivia, again, whatever the brand would like to deliver. Now, with respect to some of these product transparency initiatives, we know that a lot of brands are naturally going to take their time, get it into their workflow. But with respect to the need to do this, it's certainly important in terms of what surveys are showing in terms of clients, customers, your consumers are demanding that information. So 39% would switch to a new brand if it offered full product transparency. 56% say they would be loyal for life if it provided complete transparency. And 73% would be willing to pay more for a product that offers complete transparency in all attributes. And this is from a study done by our good friends at Label Insight. They refer to themselves as the data refinery for Smart Label information. They're certainly leaders in the field. In closing, the digital connected package is a smart way to future-proof your packaging. It's always on, always network enabled, always working 24/7. The link content can be dynamically updated, instantly accommodating a change in campaigns, or providing new content without the cost of new packaging. With all the benefits of the connected package, a modern design is simply not complete without it. With a connected package, marketers have a new narrator for the brand, telling consumers everything the brand wants to tell them without the limitations or constraints in the package design. And whether in aisle during that critical last 3 feet of decision making or at any time post-purchase. It's a new marketing channel. It's also a new broadcast medium for the brand, and the only one that the brand totally owns for ongoing engagement. And as a consumer, I can't take a beacon home with me. It's only natural that packaging plays this role as brand narrator. It's the most salient touch point between a brand and its customers. And now we look forward to taking your questions.
Thank you, Larry. As Larry mentioned, we'll now open it up for questions. Please submit your questions into the control panel now.
And while those are coming in, I have my email up on the screen, but also be sure and talk with your SHOC representative for more information. If the package, so here's a question, if the package would link to the smart label information, the brand could no longer link to their own content. Is that right? No, they're actually two separate triggers in essence. A brand could simply participate in Smart Label where the logo and the surrounding area of the logo, that becomes a trigger, and they can simply move forward with that program. But at the same time, it doesn't interfere with the opportunity to scan other parts of the packaging, which would go to, again, a brand story. So it might be, again, on provenance, might be a promotion, any number of things, whatever the brand would like to deliver. Let me see if I can enlarge this window. Actually, Anthony, I'll ask your help over here. I've got IT here to help me. So in terms of enlarging this window.
Not the X.
Ah, there we go. Is the Smart Label a GS1 initiative, or is it exclusive to Digimarc? This is a collaboration with GS1, so it is a joint initiative. And there are a lot of benefits that GS1 was seeking in terms of greater product variant information. This past week, we also announced our collaboration with GS1 Germany, and also prior to that, also working with the Futures of Shopping Working Group that we announced for Japan. Consumer scanning, DWCODE, or Smart Label package with? Good question there. So we believe that in most cases, the context will be with a retailer's app, and we have H-E-B and Wegmans and other retailers' app that we're announcing that are fully capable. Also our friends at SHAZAM. So we've worked with SHAZAM for visual Shazamming, which is used for Disney posters and Coca-Cola campaigns in Turkey, BMW in London, really around the world. And so Shazam's going to be offering this capability where, again, pointing at the package will go directly to the Smart Label content without the interference of disruptions or advertising and other things that would get in the way of that communication. Consumers or major retailers implementing the scanners needed? Yes, the timing was interesting for us in that there was already a movement to move to optical scanners. There are many other benefits beyond the DWCODE and the Digimarc barcode, but there's a pretty high penetration, such as Wegmans. They're fully enabled. There are other chains that might be 40, 50, 60%, but within a relatively short period of time, they're making those capital investments. And again, it's great timing for us because we're able to fuel even greater ROI with our adoption of the new scanners. Consumers or major retailers implementing the scanners? Yes, I hit that one. Let's see. Smart Label information, the brand, let me scroll here, apologies. And Anthony, are there any other new ones here?
Anything new that comes in should be there.
Okay.
Good. I think we're on, Larry.
Yes.
What app, if they need one, are consumers scanning DW or Smart Label package with?
Sure. Again, initially it will be they should look to the retailer's app. Also look to SHAZAM. That's something that's upcoming in terms of announcing. There's also, we have an SDK, a mobile SDK, that's really leading with respect to its capabilities in scanning in terms of skew or distance or hard to read barcodes. We make that readily available to other mobile developers as we have with retailers. Installation, integration takes maybe 5, 6, 7 hours, very easy to do. So there's also a very broad adoption. And part of what will be driving developers and retailers for their mobile apps for that adoption is simply that they want to be concurrent with the new GS1 mobile scan. This is an announcement from GS1 that's basically going to a general call to action that now your mobile phone can interact with packaging.
Here's another question. How does a consumer know what app to use to view the content?
This will be rolling out. One of the key things will be the retailer app initially. They've got the greatest relationship with the retailer, and what retailers are doing with us now is waiting until they have a certain level of adoption within the store, a certain number of packages on shelf, and then they'll announce to their consumers that now you can go engage with our private label or with these national brands. So that's one of the first parts. The other thing would be with SHAZAM. They have over 500 million downloads, 120 million average monthly users, and so SHAZAM can very readily reach out to its audience. And again, for the prime audience that most advertisers and brands are going for, it's virtually on everyone's phone. And again, there'll be many other independent shopping apps already underway that we'll be announcing.
You mentioned many different types of communication, brand stories, social networking, transparency, and so on. Is there any particular type of communication that consumers are most interested in?
Yeah, I think we've really seen this shift toward product transparency. That is really the key, that young people today really care what they put in their bodies, and we're seeing this shift. Now, it's interesting in many cases in the surveys, they're fine with things that might be, maybe I care about that a little bit less, but I'm still willing to buy the product. The key is really looking to the brand to be honest and have transparency. That's really the key driver. And you also see that in a lot of trends in terms of the local for movement. You also see it in some of the flanker brands that are coming out with stories that maybe is unique in terms of how their products are made or grown.
How does the consumer know which packaging is readable?
Sure. Some of that is tied to retailer. In the case of Wegmans, there's an icon on the package that denotes to their app users and their customers that it's readily scanned. We're also working with GS1 on a universal identifier, call to action, which will be flexible, will be on a package that will denote again to consumers. The other things that some retailers are looking at is also lighting up, in essence, a section of the store first as a way to roll out and engage consumers. So it might be the baby department, for example, or pet care, and that way you know in that department that those products are enabled.
Are you finding that the Digimarc conflicts with the design and colors of the packaging?
There will be a change because we have to work within the colors. We use the basic design itself as a signal. One advantage of that is that once that change is made, then a billion packages can be made. There's no incremental cost, such as a tag or RFID. At the same time, to a designer who every day knows their package so well, they will notice perhaps in certain colors or spot colors, what we refer to as maybe a slight perturbation, a slight change. But we're confident and utilizing research to demonstrate this, that for consumers, it's not something that actually would impact or impede a sale. It's subtle enough for that. And certainly with packages that have more variety in their design, so it might be a leaf, might be a product shot of the dish itself, then it's far easier to actually enhance in those areas. And that really becomes very difficult now for most people, even the designer at times, to see. So we're able to utilize the design. It's not a one-size-fits-all. The process doesn't just simply lay over all the art. It's really dynamic in terms of where do you want to put the energy that might be stronger in certain areas to ensure scanning or consumer engagement. In other areas, in essence, the energy is slightly turned down.
What CPGs are using Digimarc? How long until large numbers will be on board?
Sure. I'm afraid we're caught there in one way. We have a long history in terms of respecting confidentiality as we have with world banks. And CPGs have asked us to remain quiet really for the reason that they don't want initially consumers trying packaging that might not be fully deployed. So they want to ensure that when consumer has confidence when they scan packaging. So it's really up to the brands when they make those announcements to their customers and through the retailers. However, there are, in terms of private, well, I was just going to say, Stephanie, yeah, in terms of private label, certainly, though, products are being rolled out now.
Okay, great. Will the collaboration of the 16 Japanese companies help to accelerate the rate of adoption of DW codes here in the U.S.?
It'll be a separate venture with respect to Japan. I think that one of the key things we're excited about there is it includes Dai Nippon Printing, the world's largest printer. It includes the largest retailers and the largest brands in Japan. So we're excited about that, but they're going to be very methodical, which we appreciate, and really look at what's the best way to deploy within Japan. As we all know, there's very high smartphone engagement within Japan. So it's really an exciting opportunity that we're looking forward to.
Does the DW code provide protection against gray market products? How secure is the technology?
Sure. We don't quite bill it that way, but with this respect, though, if you use serialized printing, so with a HP Indigo, and we work closely with HP, have a relationship with them, then with a serialized number in each package, then certainly that is a way to look at if there's multiple codes that are detected. So it might be upon delivery or upon registration, a code in essence is put aside or recognized that it has been utilized. So that's one way to do that. We also have a partnership with Outvision in Switzerland, which really focuses more on the pharma and over-the-counter side with respect to more looking at more powerful means in terms of deterrence of counterfeiting.
Okay. Will the cost of individually coded packaging become prohibitive for brands?
So there are two costs. One of them is a $50 annual fee, license fee to Digimarc. And basically what we're going to ensure is that the systems all run well. We know how to fully deploy worldwide systems, as we have repeatedly, even starting 20 years ago, again, with world banks. So this ensures for the brand that their consumers will always have the right linkage, always have the right experience, always have the right uptime. There's a separate fee that has to do with working with artwork. Shock and you should speak with Shock. Roughly, though, about $350 is sort of an average package, perhaps depending upon the complexity of the package. That's a one-time touch per SKU. The process just takes a couple of hours to do, and it goes right into the workflow. So right when you're looking towards final proof, it's simply a process that they apply, and then simply show you the final proof to approve, and it goes right on press, no special inks or process at that point.
Okay, this is a good transition into this question. How do they manage the information that is behind each and every SKU? I'm guessing she's meaning from a
sure.
asset management system.
Sure. There are a couple of ways, and one, for some brands, they look at the capabilities of these kinds of linkages and say, wow, it's really powerful. I want to get my digital agency on it. At the same time, we have a lot of SKUs. So one default position is that if you're participating in Smart Label or other product transparency initiatives, then in essence, you're already going to have a tremendous amount of content that consumers desire. So go ahead and provide that linkage as a default. Now, what we do is provide a barcode manager, the Digimarc barcode manager, and it's an interface that has the specific code, and then that can be tied to specific URLs. That can be done by, here's our specific URL for our Smart Label pages. Here's other URLs that we might change. The marketing intern can change it in 1 minute, very, very simple. Here's the URL that might point to a different experience that either we're doing A/B test or we're changing the campaign. It's the day before the Super Bowl, the day after Super Bowl. We don't have to change the packaging. So it's very simple to do that. It's also possible to do that by app. So there can be a different experience based upon the retailer's app. So for a brand, they can have a different promotion with one retailer versus another retailer that might be consistent, again, with a different brand relationship with that retailer.
$50 per Digimarc barcode per SKU per year. Is that feasible for the non-giant baby food manufacturers?
We trust so. I think when looking at the upside and the opportunity to engage with consumers and provide this information, to increase brand loyalty, to tell your story perhaps up against in competition with big brands, that when you look at sort of all the dollars you're spending, all the digital campaign dollars, all the print campaign dollars, certainly from our point of view, we think it's a very, very modest amount toward the upside that's possible. The other part of it is that you're also doing is really showing product leadership with the retailers. Retailers are looking for brands to support them in terms of greater items per minute scan, greater operational efficiencies. So it's certainly a signal with respect to the brand and the retailer. And for some brands, they're looking to get perhaps more shelf space, more display space, because they've adopted it.
For the retailers you currently work with, where do they see the biggest ROI? Greater efficiency at checkout or digital engagement?
Initially, it's going to be on front of store checkout. It's just simply so demonstrable. If you think of the idea, and we can all mentally picture the cashier trying to rotate packaging, and that really creates a host of issues. One, there's time involved in that. There's actually health issues in terms of carpal tunnel syndrome. There's also bottom of basket, heavy packages. So coming around the counter, leaning over, lifting up that large bag of dog food or bottled water, and then trying to find a UPC code somewhere on the package. These are really very considerable effects to retailers. So one is just simply the items per minute, a higher flow through, and that goes right to their bottom line, very demonstrable. But it's interesting to us that some retailers, their focus has been, they're able to get that efficiency, but part of their brand is really the engagement with the consumer. So the fact that I can now move the packaging down below me very rapidly across the scanner, I don't have to rotate, I don't take my eyes off the consumer. It means now that I can engage more with the consumer, which might fit my brand in terms of our personality, how we work with our local neighborhood, good friends. And then lastly, it goes to self-checkout. So we know from various studies, about 3/4 of people just do not want to get near self-checkout if they can avoid it. And it really has to do almost some interesting psychological studies on shaming, the idea that it didn't work, it must be me, I must be wrong. So we're in service to these machines. The idea that any packaging from any angle, you can just simply plop it on the self-checkout scanner, it's going to read, certainly is going to help the retailer in terms of moving more people to have confidence and over to self-checkout. And for consumers, it would be great. I can get what I want. Maybe I don't want to engage with anyone. I can get out the store rapidly.
Great, thank you, Larry. Well, it looks like we're out of time. If anybody has any further questions, as Larry mentioned, feel free to reach out to him directly. Thank you all for joining us. As a reminder, you'll be receiving an email with a link to the video recording of this webinar. And be sure to visit brandsquare.com in the coming weeks to register for next month's webinar featuring Don Childs, Chief Creative Officer at Brand Image North America, as he presents A Taste of Bourbon Branding, telling authentic stories with design. Thank you all.